Hello, Jude Sandval and John Edwards here with our weekly real estate revelations. John, I don't want to get stressed out. What is your NMLS ID?
It's 671-258.
I was worried that you're going to forget
now
that at the end, and now we're compliant. We're good to go. We're just going to have a whole bunch of fun. So this week we are talking about home inspections. You're finally under contract.
Right.
You get really excited as a buyer.
Now the fun
and as an agent.
Right.
And then, yes, we're not clear yet. Then it's that next hurdle, which is the home inspection. So
right.
John's going to take us on a little journey here, talking all about the ins and outs of home inspections.
All right, let's get started.
Oh, and if you are watching and you find some value, please make a comment, ask us some questions. I've got my phone here. I will we'll do our best to answer any of them. If we don't get to them, we will respond to you via Messenger. And if you would like us or share this, it would greatly assist us in getting this information out to more people. Go to our YouTube channel and subscribe to that as well to watch the past episodes of our real estate revelations. There.
Thanks, Jude.
Forgot that.
Good plug. All right, so what we're going to talk about today, what is an inspection and why do I need one? Who schedules the inspection? How much does it cost? Who pays for it? What items are worth addressing and what items to ignore? Seller responses and buyer decisions. How to allocate funds for items that have been addressed, and then we'll do a quick recap.
Sounds good.
All right, so our first slide, Jude. What is an inspection and why do I need one? An inspection is a thorough review of the physical home, ideally by a licensed inspector. I suppose you could hire a non-licensed inspector, but I wouldn't recommend it.
So there's no actual licensing authority for inspectors. So you could hire, if you want to be an inspector tomorrow and augment your mortgage business, you could be an inspector. It'd probably be a problem and a conflict of interest for you.
There are licenses
there are
and
certifications like ASHI certifications.
Right.
So it's actually not licensed through the state of Colorado, anything like
point.
that. So
not through DORA then.
No, nothing like that. So that's a great starting point there, which is find somebody that is there. I think there are two. The most well known and the one that I'm aware of, and that's that the inspectors that I recommend are ASHE, A-S-H-E, I believe it is, certified. So look for that because that means they've gone through, rigorous training about knowing all the systems of your home and everything to look for. So great starting point.
Perfect. All right. Inspections can help uncover issues with the home before those issues become your total responsibility. And so really what you're doing is you're going in with somebody that knows and understands, like you said, the systems of a home and seeing what maybe you didn't see the 1, 2, 3 times you walked through the house. Or maybe you're not that experienced in those particular systems. You just don't know that something may be bad when it looks fine.
Yep. And that's their job to find absolutely everything that is possibly wrong with the home. And sometimes that scares the heck out of my buyers. They're like, oh my God, the house is going to fall into the ground. And it's really not. And I think we're going to get into some of the details.
We are. And I think that's a really good point, though, early on, is just don't get too carried away with it. Unless it's a brand new house, it's like a 30-page inspection report, right? So that comes back. So, don't get too caught up in it, but definitely take note of any major items. And we'll talk more about this in a few minutes. So.
Well, and also to keep in mind that even a new home is imperfect.
Right.
They're not perfect.
Right.
It's built by human hands with with natural materials, and there's imperfections in both of those. So you're always going to find something, even if it's a new home inspection.
So do you recommend an inspection on a new home?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, because there's just general inspections through the city, but just like any inspection, they can miss stuff and walk past stuff and forget stuff, and stuff falls through the cracks all the time. So absolutely, every and any purchase, I recommend getting an inspection.
Okay.
Never pass up that right.
And so that's on there as my last note, is always recommend getting an inspection done, even if the contract states as is. And so what that means is you could potentially submit an offer, right? A buyer could submit an offer to a seller that states that we're willing to purchase the property as is, meaning we don't intend to to get nitpicky or ask for anything on the inspection. And I know some agents will do as is unless the item is safety or hazard, something to that effect.
Yeah, there's different ways you can word that in the additional provisions.
Yep.
But it should essentially say something about they don't waive their right to an inspection,
Right.
Or the terms of the contract where they can get out of the contract if
Yep.
they find stuff that they have issues with.
Basically, the seller's saying we're not doing anything, we're not fixing anything, and as the buyer saying, okay, I understand that.
I understand. We're still going to check it out and make sure that there isn't anything that's a real big issue that we can't live with.
So who schedules the inspection? How much is it, and who pays for it? So Jude, as the buyer's agent, you're going to schedule the inspection, right?
Well, typically I'll have the buyer schedule it directly with the inspector, and we can't recommend an inspector, but we can give several recommendations of inspectors that we've worked with.
Okay.
And there are several really good ones that I work with, but then because it's actually a transaction between the buyer and the inspector.
Sure.
And we're just basically facilitating the ability to access the property.
Yep.
And because the buyer is going to be there and with the inspector to go through the systems, look at the issues, and also make the payment, then I have them schedule that directly and contract with them directly.
Makes sense. And typically inspections $350 to $600, somewhere in that range.
Depends on the price, yeah. But
and how big the property is,
exactly.
right?
Yep.
And then additional inspection items could come up. Sewer scopes and radon testing. Those are each going to be an additional $75 to $150, somewhere in that neighborhood. Personally, I would recommend having both of them done. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it depends on the buyer, and it depends on, the sewer inspection that's potentially a big ticket item. Roofs, that's why these things that you don't want to, you just made one of the largest purchases probably in your lifetime.
Right.
You probably brought some money to the table, probably saved a bit of time to bring that money to the table. So the last thing you want is a huge capital cost once you move in on something that's like a roof or a furnace or a sewer or something like that. So the big ones, I absolutely recommend. The radon thing, it depends on who you talk to, and it depends on the buyers and how they feel about the radon. So some people will say absolutely. Some people will say, hey, unless you're going to be down eating soil and sleeping on the soil, which the radon naturally comes out of, then don't really worry about it.
So basically, you don't want a sewer scope would be recommended. You don't want to find out 6 months down the road there was a crack in the sewer line. And now you're on the hook for $6,000 to $15,000, somewhere in that $5 to $15,000, somewhere in there. So, in my opinion, it's good insurance. Up front, not that expensive, and potentially could save you a lot of money down the road.
Yep.
The buyer is responsible for covering the cost of the inspection, like the appraisal. This is a cost that needs to be paid up front, not at closing. So that's something we've talked about in the past, but you want to have some money set aside before you get to closing for your appraisal, for your inspection.
And we say it every week, but that's the reason to sit down with your mortgage broker and your lender and your real estate agents and really talk through all of this stuff before, how much money you're going to need for inspections and for appraisals and to bring to closing, et cetera. So
absolutely. All right. So what items are worth addressing, and what items should we, I don't know if ignore is the best word, but what items do we not necessarily need to address in an inspection objection?
Sure.
So we always say safety and hazard issues should be addressed. Examples could be electrical, structural, radon, CO2, water, mold, mildew. Anything else you can think of? Those were just the ones off the top of my mind.
No, I think you've got most everything other than big things like furnace. I don't know if you've got that.
Well, that's
on there.
my next one. Big ticket items.
Big ticket items, right.
As well.
Okay.
But I did not include furnace or
health safety. Yeah, health safety. Well, in the furnace, I was thinking
furnace, boiler, I didn't include roof on there either.
Roof.
Deck stability is something, that might fall under structural.
Right.
But I have heard of situations where you're on the deck and it's moving a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not safe. And most of the time an appraiser would actually probably note that and ask for that to be fixed, whether it's conventional or
depends,
FHA.
Yeah, it depends on the appraiser.
But it may not.
And
And so, that's, again, an inspection item where your inspector should definitely notice that.
Right. Well, and maybe this is a good place to talk about the FHA appraisal, which kind of
include it in the
crosses over with the inspection items because they talk about stuff that needs to be repaired because of the terms of an FHA loan. Do we?
Yeah. So in some cases,
on
an FHA loan, the appraiser is actually keeping an eye out on some other items. So like if they happen to see a wood that's rotten around the house,
right.
Paint that's chipping, a deck that's moving,
flooring,
broken windows, flooring that's not safe or sturdy,
right.
It's more likely to come up as an issue on an FHA loan,
which they're going to require be repaired before
prior to closing.
Closing.
The appraiser will need to go back out, inspect, in the sense they need to just see that it has indeed been fixed.
Right. Because sometimes you'll get clients, and if an agent has not prepared them to understand that the appraiser goes out after the inspector and it's an FHA loan, and then they come back with other things on top of what came in the inspection, then they're like, well, didn't we just have an inspection?
Right.
So that's why it's important to have a strong real estate agent who knows what they're doing, strong lender.
Yep.
Maybe you sat down, you kind of set out, that it's FHA loan, so you're going to prepare them for that before, once you get under contract and you're excited, then the inspection, all those items, we're going to negotiate that, but then we're going to have the appraisal from FHA. And, if you've been around the business a little while, you kind of have an idea of what they're going to call out in the appraisal, some of the stuff you just listed. But sometimes, you could have 10 FHA appraisers go out and you can get 10 different lists of stuff that need to go.
Yeah.
So sometimes you don't know. I always will just say, it's likely that an FHA appraiser is going to call something out. And even when on the list side, when I'm selling to the sellers, if we accept an FHA offer.
Maybe. Yeah. I think a lot. Yeah.
I mean, I haven't had one that hasn't called at least one thing out. Well,
really?
That's not true. I did have one last year that didn't call something
out. We don't see a ton of it. It definitely comes up. Usually it's easy items that can be taken care of. A lot of the times listing. Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of times listing agents too will note things like you said, if you've been around for a while and hey, an FHA, if we accept this as an FHA deal, there's a good chance that paint's going to need to be done.
Yes.
Maybe we should just do it ahead of time and get it, so it looks nicer anyway. Because typically if you've got chipping paint or something like that, then it might make sense to do that stuff up front.
Sure.
So don't worry about small non-safety hazardous items or non-big ticket items for that matter. So outlets, what's the thing that with the outlets that the inspector is always like, it's not enough, it's not maybe a 3-prong or it's not like enough voltage or whatever.
The grounding, or if there's reverse polarity on it, or if it's the old aluminum wiring.
It's easy to fix typically. Old aluminum wiring might be a little bit more involved, but for the most part, it's switching out the outlets, which is easy enough for an electrician to do and not very expensive. But certainly if it goes to another level where we're talking electrical, where we've got old electrical wiring or unsafe wiring, that's something that, in my opinion, could easily move to a safety issue.
And sometimes you get the old breakers in the boxes too that have shown that they have issues that need to be replaced as well.
So paint, you don't like the color of the paint, you don't like the carpet, and that wasn't something that was initially addressed. The hardwood floors need to be shined. These are things that I would not, these are all cosmetic items I wouldn't worry about. Holes in the walls, I mean, if there's a lot of them, if they're big, then maybe you address that. But for the most part, you knew walking through it that, there was some holes in the wall. So that's not a difficult thing to fix necessarily.
Yeah.
Broken ceiling fans, smaller items. And this goes back, this is a seller's market right now. It is not that difficult for them to say, you know what, this is ridiculous. We'll just put the house back in the market.
Yeah, we've come full circle to where it was before. You know, the buyers
giving
the
buyers everything they wanted. Yeah,
they're fixing everything short of doing full remodels and giving closing concessions. And now we're on the other end of the spectrum, which is really we're not going to do anything unless it's a real big health safety issue that's going to prevent us from selling ever.
Totally. Yep. So seller responses and buyer decisions. So, once you've gone through, you've had your inspection done, you've had some time to look at the inspection report. If there are items you want to address, you would do that through an inspection objection, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And
now let me ask your opinion on this, because does an inspection objection, can that potentially have any kind of impact on the borrower and their loan package?
It could.
Okay, how?
Typically you wouldn't submit an inspection objection probably to the lender.
Okay.
But I mean, if there's items if it does get to an underwriter and there's items that the underwriter feels need to be fixed prior to closing, they can certainly make that a requirement.
So do you ever see that sometimes underwriters will ask, was there an inspection objection? No? Okay.
Nope.
Okay.
No.
Or an appraiser?
No. I've never had an appraiser ask.
Okay.
So now you're in a negotiation. You've said, hey, these are items that we want to address. Here, Mr. Seller, this is what we want to address. And the sellers can say, okay, great. We'll fix everything you said. We won't fix anything. Or, we'll give you, I think typically what it comes down to is some sort of a negotiation. You've asked for $8,000 worth of things to be fixed. We'll give you $5,000 as a seller credit.
Yep.
Does that sound about right?
It can go, it can go any
way, right?
Any number of ways.
Yep.
Exactly. And this is where a strong agent is going to protect your interest in your position, whether you're the seller or whether you're the buyer.
Yeah, and the buyers just need to take that into consideration. How well do they like that response from the sellers? Are they willing to work with it and accept it at face value, or are they going to say, you know what? We don't like it. We're going to walk away from the transaction. And the buyer certainly has the right to do so at that point.
Yep, exactly.
So how to allocate funds for items addressed. So now and I've got an example at the bottom here. So let's just say that there was an agreement of $5,000 worth of items to be addressed on the inspection objection. The seller said, hey, we'll give you $5,000 credit. And so once you come to an agreement with the sellers, then they will need to fix the items or credit you the funds. So they can either say, okay, we'll fix these prior to closing, or we have calculated or had estimates done or whatever. The total amount we expect for the items that we're addressing here is $5,000. We will credit you $5,000, or we'll reduce the purchase price by $5,000.
Right, and that's all a personal choice. Sometimes buyers want to do that because they want to make their own changes. They're going to say remodel the kitchen. They want to do their own colors, etc. They'll say, give me the flooring credit as opposed to redoing it because we're going to redo it anyway.
Yeah, now most loans, $5,000 within, in this example is going to cover all, if not a very big chunk of your closing costs. So that might give you an opportunity even to buy down the interest rate or something like that.
Yep.
So that's how that transaction and that negotiation play out. So just to recap here, Jude, inspections are very highly recommended, and in my opinion, it sounds like your opinion, worth every dollar.
Yes.
This is
I would just say never waive your right to an inspection on any purchase.
What about this situation? What if you've been renting the house for 3 years and you're buying it from the owner of the property?
I would still do it unless you are a licensed contractor, because there are things that you may not be aware of. There could be water penetration somewhere.
Sure.
The really good inspectors are going to come in. They've got infrared guns that they're going to shoot around, and they're going to find. I had one that closed not this year, the year before, and the inspector found water leakage along a whole foundation wall that was not presenting. But because they used the infrared gun, they were able to find water. When they pulled it out, it was entirely molded.
Very interesting.
So
Very
absolutely have an inspection done every single time you purchase.
Good info, Jude. So this is a seller's market. So don't get picky with small items, but do address safety and hazard items, big ticket stuff. Those kinds of items are definitely things that want to be addressed on the inspection. Carefully consider the seller's response and act accordingly. Sometimes you may need to terminate the contract and walk away. And then work with the lender to determine if a reduction in purchase price or credit to closing costs and prepaid items is the best route for you.
Yeah. Do you get a lot of canceled on inspection?
No.
I haven't either.
No. Usually the agents, the buyers and sellers come together and come to an agreement.
Yeah.
Yep.
If there's strong agents working and
Yep.
setting good expectations, you can always create a win-win.
I would actually say the few that I've seen have been the result of either the buyer or the seller decided that they did not want to buy or sell the home anymore. And so used the inspection as a way to get out of it.
Right, which stinks.
Which does stink, but but it happens every
Right.
once in a while.
Can't control the buyers or the sellers.
That's exactly right. All right, so that's our presentation for today. Again, I'm John Edwards with Castle and Cooke Mortgage. I can be reached at 303-921-5747. And Jude Sandval, how do we get in touch with you?
Jude at judesandval.com or 720-427-1021. And we just wanted to give a shout out to Josh Klein again at Let's Scissor. He's given us some hair tips again online. If you guys are watching, please connect with him. He's asked for a shout out. So there you go, my friend. Thanks for watching. If we could get more than Josh giving hair tips, that would be appreciated. So go and like us, share this presentation, go to our YouTube page and subscribe there. Watch some of our past real estate revelations, and we will see you next week.